Obviously. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Sorry we're late. This seems to be, the staple of kind of any stream that I tend to do nowadays. It tends to be late. In this case, by an entire day. So I apologize for that. It's one of those things which, unfortunately, is a consequence of my medical condition. But I'm joined this evening by daughter of Albion, Sarah. Good evening.
Hi. How's it going? Hi.
Yeah, and by Tailed Feature. Good evening.
Feskarmat.
More Bulgarian. We
More
may
Bulgarian.
be joined by the estimable Britisher later on this evening, but he's just popped a pizza in the oven, so he'll be about half an hour if he
That's
comes.
cultural appropriation.
What am I taking pizza? I live with an Italian woman. She's just across the hall, and I was putting a pizza in the other day, and she was just like, I was trying to get out of the way of her cooking because she was cooking, I don't know, ravioli or something. And I got the pizza out of the oven, and I was like, "Don't mind me, I'm just culturally appropriating your national dish."
Any laugh or?
Oh yes, he choked on her ravioli, so that was always a bonus. Let's see, who do we have? Chat asking whether or not my voice will crack tomorrow, and that sort of thing. Yes,
crack or drop?
I don't know what you're talking about, but for those of you who don't know, I have managed to acquire an interview with Peter Hitchens tomorrow, and if you don't know who that is, go do some research because he's worth listening to. On some things more than others, but he's definitely an erudite speaker. It's all very good. Yes, people asking. I feel like I'm back in my GCSE literature class. I don't think so. I mean, we haven't talked about the books yet. Was Britisher an army? Maybe that's why. Was Britisher an army brat? Oh, I mean, who knows? He keeps his own past very close to his chest, which is why it's such a delight to obviously put him into every single historical narrative that's ever been written. But no, how are you guys doing? How's your day gone?
Very well. Quite busy, but not so bad. Yeah, not as painful as yours. It sounds like.
Oh, it's fine. Today I've been much better, so it's good.
Yeah, working hard today.
As opposed to, I'm hardly working, so I suppose it counterbalances out in the wider context of things.
Yep, it's really not fair that I have to work and you don't have to work as much.
On the other hand, Tailed, you are paid, which is something
sometimes I am. Yeah,
we would hope so. A lot of pro-Russian literature in the chat. By the looks of things, have either of you read much Russian literature? A bit of Solzhenitsyn, a bit of Rousseau.
Rousseau?
Not Rousseau.
You nearly went there. You mean?
I was going to say Russophilic, and I wasn't sure if this was a word or not, so I kind of got stuck halfway.
You did go Rue rather than Russ.
Russophilic.
I've read some Tolstoy. Is he Russian? I think.
Pushkin.
I don't even know.
Yes, of course he is.
Of course, our expert.
As soon as I said that, I was like, shit, is he even Russian? Myself.
Alan Tolstoy.
Yeah.
Along with popular British writer Laban von Liebenthal. There we go. Base Liz saying, hello, miss you guys. Can't wait till January's over. Yes, we haven't heard from Base Liz in a while.
I was thinking I haven't heard from Liz in ages. Miss you, Liz.
Hopefully we'll have to have you on soon when things calm down for you. People saying Dostoevsky's better. Like, you can tell basically who kind of like the baseline like Jordan Petersonites, I suppose, in chat are.
I see. Right, Solzhenitsyn and Dostoevsky.
Have only read or claim to have read Solzhenitsyn and Dostoevsky.
About Pushkin.
Sutsgoen with a super chat in nice and early. Thank you very much, sir. 50 Danish kroner saying nothing sensible to say except Nom the bunny. How do you feel about being objectified in today's media? Sarah.
More than happy with it. More than happy with it.
And I'm more than happy to profit off that. So it's fine.
Unless he's got a lint bunny there with him that he's talking about. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Moody Englishman donated $4.99. Thank you very much, and says Britisher eats oven pizza, not foie gras and brandy. Absolute fraud and a charlatan.
I bet it's like deconstructed pizza on a kind of like caviar base or something.
And he
I bet he eats it from the crust.
With the jus.
He eats it from the crust, but serves it to himself on one of those little chopping boards, you know.
With a knife and fork as well. I bet he doesn't use his hands, yeah.
No. Like, he's not like Tailed. Tailed would take, like a basics pizza out of the oven, tear it into strips with his bare hands, like burning himself a little bit at the fingertips, maybe.
After sprinkling some haggis on it.
Sprinkled
haggis pizza sounds awesome.
That would be a haggis. Awesome. That would be a haggis that you've gone out and caught yourself, of course. With your bare hands. I mean, it's not that they're difficult to catch. They've only got 3 legs and they run in circles, but you know.
Yeah, I know.
How do you pluck a haggis, or do you like fillet it?
I just boil it.
Actually, that's disgusting. I was just thinking online. Sainsbury's sells haggis pizza. Wowza.
Haggis pizza is a real thing. It's great.
People asking me to notice them. I'll notice you more if you super chat, but I do notice you there.
Or send nudes.
If get this stream instantly demonetized. If Dane Law returns, Sarah, Sitsko and assures us that you'll be taken as a worthy representative of British ladies.
When you say taken, do I have a say in this? Or?
Well, presumably, given the last time the Danes came for us, I don't think there was much choice involved. There you go. Well, oh dear. No, so the purpose of this stream, because of my love of literature, naturally, but I was thinking about this the other day because I don't read nearly as much as I used to, and this upsets me. Like on a deep personal level, you know, I remember my angsty teens reading a lot, and now I get all my requisite information from reading mainstream media sources and watching YouTube. So it's kind of I lack a bit of the old beauty. I was going back over like what I read in like reading Watership Down, for instance, in primary school, and I went back over it. I need to read it again, actually, and I was just like, I just remember the depth of the story. I always did enjoy it, but I don't read fiction anymore, which is one of those strange things where I always
loved. Why is that, do you think? Just not in a mood, or?
Well, I always loved fiction, and then I sort of trailed off, and then I still love narrative. I still get my narrative from films and video games and so on and so forth. But there's something about reading a book. I think I'm trying to think what the last actual fiction book I read in recent memory, and I can't place it.
Oh, that's a shame.
Whereas I read, like I've read a lot of I tend to read non-fiction that's based not based on true stories. That is like sort of more biographical or autobiographical in nature. So sort of inspiring stories, you know, that sort of thing. So I read a book, for instance, called, in fact, I have it here. I go back. Called Red Moon Rising, which was a story about how basically it was a big thing in a Christian community, but it's a story about how this one group basically started something called the 24/7 prayer movement, and how they ended up getting into the lives of 2 million people in 12,000 locations. So it was, it was an interesting story, regardless of your position on religion. It's had a huge impact worldwide. And it's just an interesting story, you know.
Sounds good.
My mum got me Around the World in 80 Days.
Cool, Jordan.
And then Around the World in 78 Days, which is the one that I read more recently, which is again sort of it's a story of Nicholas Coleridge, who set out to basically beat Phileas Fogg's 80-day circumnavigation. And he shunned all the aeroplanes just to read the blurb. He proceeded only by rail, steamer, rickshaw, taxi, dhow, elephant, and camel at an average speed of 375 miles a day, within a fingernail of a missed connection and total failure. He was smuggled secretly through Ethiopia, braved sharks in the Arabian Sea, icebergs in the Atlantic, prostitutes in Hawaii, and was thwarted by customs officials, ticket clerks, and bureaucratic resistance of every kind. And basically, it's his story of returning with 38 hours and 10 minutes to spare. And it was quite a good read.
That sounds really good.
And that sort of thing. But so that's really what I've been reading in recent. People, Red Moon Rising sounds like a porn title.
It does, it really does.
It's just like
you read plenty of fiction though, Mark, because you do read the mainstream media.
Hey, news reference. Speaking of fake news references, have we seen everything going on with this sort of, what is it, Charlton Conservatives or something?
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? Some of the reactions are crazy. What did you say, Charlton? Charlton School.
I can't remember the name of the
Collington.
All I know is that Trump has got in on this, and has invited them to the White House tomorrow.
Oh,
so that's going to be entertaining.
They are going to have meltdown. Yeah, the people, not them, but the press.
Yes, I think so. The whole thing has been a meltdown. I was featured on EFAP yesterday. What? I have no idea what EFAP is, and I don't think I want to know. Have any of you read The Naked Communist? The implications are incredibly blackpilling. I'm not familiar with that. Right, you guys?
I think you missed a super chat, by the way.
Did I miss a super chat?
You did.
Not. I had The Naked Chef.
Because I read it and I had to do some research on it because it was aimed at me.
Why don't you read the super chat then, Tail? This is directed for you.
I've got to scroll up and find it now.
I know. There's so much work for you to do.
Question for Tailed. You actually wrote for.
That was so Scottish.
Question for Tailed. Have you been to Big Gary's bins? So I had to look this up, and it's there's a Scottish YouTuber called Batchy, who I met a few weeks just before Christmas, actually. But I don't watch his stuff. So I had to research what Big Gary's bins was. And it's something that this Scottish YouTuber had been speaking about, which I completely missed. So no is the answer to that. There you go. Thanks for the £5.
Yes,
I don't know why I'm taking thank you for it.
You can thank him on my behalf. Yes, thank you, Lord Pterodax.
Consider the amount of money I've given you recently, Mark.
Yeah, I know you have.
Wow.
Tailed basically paid for the entirety of the room. He paid for the entirety of the room hire for this Peter Hitchens interview. So
you hired a room, oi.
Oh yeah, okay. So to go from the Peter Hitchens, so I'm meeting him tomorrow at 11. We're going just down the road, and then up into a meeting room. I've got him for 90 minutes. There's going to be professional lighting. There are 2 cameras. So yeah, there's a nice black leather sofa in there, and plenty of lube. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Oh God! I hope he hears this beforehand.
I see. I hope not.
It's like tag him in it.
The academic agent, right, who's decided that he's going to post every single Peter Hitchens meme that he can find, including all of the ones that are. Let me see. Where is it? I might share my screen 1 second if I can get rid of these tabs which docks me. Yes, here we go. So, screen share active. There we go. Activate, yes. Transform. But basically, in this thread, I'm going to promote this interview. So we've got like this. I don't know. I presume he's looking at his own memes because I'm going. Basically, the format of the interview is going to be I've got 15 quite serious questions plus any tangents we happen to go down. I'm hoping that's going to be enough content to get through, but there's other stuff if we have more time that I can go into, but I'm less prepared for. But one of the things at the end is I'm going to do 5 or 6 patron-only questions, which have been suggested by patrons, which are generally a couple of them are serious, but there are some really unserious ones. So things like the third biscuit question is going in there. Someone said, please ask him what his favorite color is. So that's going in there. What else have we got? In fact, I've got the questions up here. Let me see. Given that all skimmed milk is wretched white water, do you prefer to drink whole milk or Jersey Gold Top?
Ooh.
And how do you feel about being used as an allegory for the analysis of social decay in memes? So
Brilliant.
it's going to be.
I'm looking forward to this.
I'm thinking the best way to phrase them, because if I phrase them incorrectly, he'll never speak to me again.
I was going to say he'll probably just look at you incredulously.
Whereas I'd much rather stay off his blocked contact list on his phone, because I have his mobile number now. But I did watch. I've gone through probably about over 100 hours of interviews from 1994 to today to try and make sure that I'm not asking stupid questions. And this one guy, I do not know. He's a channel with like 200 subscribers who's only done this one interview with Peter Hitchens. And it's clearly put him off pursuing an interview ever again, because he's asked these questions, and it's just like Donald Trump or Putin, and he just goes, well, why does one have to choose? And that's the end of his answer. It's just like, oh, do you have a great love of X, Y, and Z? And he's like, yes. And that's the end of the answer. So
it must just be bored as hell of these questions.
Just like, he's such a serious person, and I think part of him does it just for the thrill of it. But I think
you're going to keep the Patreon questions until the very, very end.
Yes.
All 3 minutes or something.
All the serious stuff is going to happen first, and then I will broadside him with the silly questions after clarifying that they are silly questions, but people have asked me to ask them.
It's excited. When will you upload the interview then? Tomorrow,
I don't know. Maybe? I would hope that I can get it out by the end of the week, because I've got to. I'm going to have to cut together the 2 camera angles and basically make it sound decent. And if there's any kerfuffles or anything, then they'll need to be edited out. And if there's too many kerfuffles, then I may end up doing a blooper reel, which will be behind a paywall. So,
just as long as you don't do a Sargon and upload it with like the worst audio possible.
Oh yeah, just like sound like I'm speaking into a sock. Well, as a backup, like let's say everything goes wrong tomorrow, the cameras don't work, the lighting isn't working, etc. I will have my laptop there with my microphone, so we can at least have decent audio. So I'll be recording 3 sets of audio on the day. So hopefully one of those will not be completely ruined. But as you can see here from these memes, you've got Captain Switzerland offering skimmed milk to the vampire Peter Hitchens, and he's recoiling. There was obviously that interview he had with pro-drug students, where at the end he told them to rot in hell. So I was like, rot in hell, you black pill addict. And then, of course, there's 3 memes here of drug kingpin Hitchens, where to dress the part, him cooking surrounded by his cocaine mountains. So it's just like, do I show these to him at the end or not, or is he just going to be offended?
I'd like to see his reaction to memes.
I know.
Just ask him first if he's seen any memes of himself. Ask him if he's seen any.
Yes.
And then, depending on his answer, then judge from there.
Yeah.
Well, the majority.
But I mean, don't do it at the start for sure.
No. None of the quote unquote silly stuff is happening at the start. But if we have time at the end, we will do a reaction record, and we'll see where that goes.
I bet an academic agent must be so excited to see this.
He's fangirling a little bit, yes.
I bet.
he was potentially going to be here, but he did point out that as he's read all of Hitchens' books, and knowing what he gets like when he's around such people, he said, I will just end up dominating the conversation. So I was like, well, fair enough. Maybe come at some point. Yes, lots of memes of me calling Hitchens up, looking decidedly like I want. Oh, I don't know. I don't know where most of these are coming from right now. Mr. Hitchens, may I have an interview, please?
Not even please.
That is like the worst ever Photoshop I think I've seen in my life.
I like it when they're really bad Photoshops, though.
But it's clear. He's sitting there across with skimmed milk and a packet of biscuits, and presumably some strong efforts in there anyway. It works.
It works.
We'll get demonetized for nudity now on stream. But no, that's a good. We've got a good subset. I'm looking forward to that one. Where have we gone? Where's it gone? Stop that. Yes. And yes, so I'm excited. It's going to take the whole day, and it's just a substantial amount of time. It's not 5 minutes, so I want to do it right.
Of course.
And I'm really looking forward to putting some decent stuff together for the audience, etc.
Do you have a separate audio recorder that you could use?
Well, so there's the two cameras and the microphone attached to those, and the microphone that's going to be attached to my laptop separately. So there's all that. We found quite an interesting thing because we're using these nice cameras, but they're not camcorders, right? And it turns out that there's a piece of EU legislation which says that ordinary cameras are not allowed to record for more than 30 minutes at a time.
What?
Otherwise, they go into a higher tax bracket for VAT.
No.
So we have two cameras, and they're going to be offset from one another. So we'll start one, a couple of minutes after the other. And obviously, we're going to use them both for quick cuts anyway. But it's just funny to me that they have this extra tax bracket. So another reason to leave the European Union.
Indeed, Remainer.
Don't call me a Remainer. I'm no longer a Remainer. I was a reformer once upon a time.
Oh, I see. Born again.
Born again. Yes. Let me see. Staff Sergeant Sniper, who's a prominent contributor to the merch store, says, "Bunny mug in UO store when?" So we're going to have to make you. We'll make you a mug, Sarah, when you come up with a copyright-free avatar.
Oh right, I see.
Sarah's already a mug.
She's
mug for a mug. You got your own mug, Tails?
No, because
I think so.
Not fucking sellout.
If we're going to talk sellouts, I mean, the British is the greatest.
Yeah.
The greatest. He's done so well out of the Euro store.
He invented capital.
No way. Have people bought some?
Oh, he made. I mean, most of us made. I don't know. Oh well, AA made no money because he refused to shill his own products. A couple of people made it. A couple of bob. I made. I don't know, 20 quid off it, and Britisher made nearly 50, so he's doing all right.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's because he filmed himself making a cup of tea.
Oh, yes. He did an excellent advertising campaign.
Easy work.
And it clearly worked, yes. I'm looking not so Karen Strawn right now. Oh, yes, people keep telling me that I look like Karen Strawn. Well, I have my new avatar anyway.
I'd never seen that before.
Oh, thank you so much for laughing.
I'm laughing at Tails' reaction. I don't know what she looks like, but just that really tickles him.
Karen Strawn was a funny one as well, because I had her on a stream once.
Yeah,
and to talk, feminism, plight of men, that sort of.
She definitely talks.
That sort of thing. And she does talk, but I'll tell you, she takes it all so seriously. It's like I had her on to try and, for my usual light-hearted way, to have a bit of a chat about things, maybe to talk about stuff outside as well, her field of interest. And no, she just everything goes back to that. It's just there's no
She's
way
a
to get her off
professional.
the topic. And I just go, oh, fair enough. It's just
Well,
it's
it
just
has been sort of the core of what she does for a long time now. So, but
It's
you missed another super chat. You terrible host.
I have the panel. I don't have to do them as soon as they come up, man. Like it's gonna be fun.
I know. But people are pestering me now for you to read them out.
Oh dear. Well, you shouldn't bend to the will of your viewers, Tailed, as much as
They're not my viewers.
well, they're viewing you. Binary Surfer has donated £5 and says, "Good luck, Minion Mark," which is a really irritating nickname that I wish hadn't stuck, but now I am stuck with.
It's stuck well there, hasn't it?
Also, I dare you to ask him the trap question.
Oh, what's that?
Are traps gay? I am not. If you can get Hitchens to drop an F-bomb, I will pay £100 to you. I tell you what, I will pay you £100 if I can do that. It's not something I think that exists within his vocabulary for professional reasons.
Immoral.
Yes, very immoral. Karen is great. Nothing against her or you. Just hard to tell you apart in small icon form. No, I think Karen's great. She's got a good message and she does great stuff. But yeah, the resemblance is uncanny. Dear.
At least she the implication is that she looks like a man.
Well, is it?
Potentially. I think
Well, the chat said Mark looks like Karen, not Karen looks like Mark. So,
and according to chat as well, Karen looks like stereotypical lesbian without actually being one. So,
yeah, that was kind of what I was going with.
Yeah, bless her. But no hate towards Karen, No,
of course not. No.
But bless.
But God, she can talk.
God, she can talk. Yeah, I mean, it's the easiest stream I did in a while. I mean, honestly.
Tails, let it go.
Even Tails.
It's really stressed out. Just when you mention her name, just Tails has this little sharp intake of anxiety.
Well,
I've sat and watched some of her lectures, and you're just like, oh, get to the point.
Oh really? I haven't watched much of her. I'll have to. She sounds very knowledgeable.
She was a good like a segue into kind of like my red pilling, as it were, like moving deeper into that whole thing. Back when I was injured and in the military and going, oh, what should I do? And I ended up like reading a load of MGTOW stuff, not because I was particularly interested in joining MGTOW, but just because I found them so hilarious. And then as a result, I found the men's rights activists, and as a result, I found everything else. So it was interesting.
Yeah, the last thing I watched of her was she was at Mythicist Milwaukee, and the chair just had to keep reeling her back in and saying, "Could you actually answer the question now?"
Yeah, you can be. Apparently, I'm a weak Londoner elitist.
And I was a Brexiteer from the start. Yeah.
Even you,
a Scot,
even a Tukter.
Nice that you remembered that word.
I tell you what, I am a knowledgeable chap from time to time.
I'm not actually a Tukter. Like by the official definition, anyway. I'm not.
I know. I was insulting you.
I know. I'm trying to insult you back.
Oh dear.
Sarah was asking what a Tukter is. So a Tukter is essentially someone sort of from the north of Scotland.
I've heard my mum say it, and I don't know what she means.
Yeah, it's usually someone who's deemed as being a bit simple and. Perhaps,
yeah, I've heard it call my dad this. That's what she must mean.
Yeah, and also perhaps someone who has a penchant for sheep.
I hope that's not my dad.
A Welsh Scotsman, if you will. Yeah.
Well, the Aberdonians are also well known for their, sheep.
Haggis, right? They love haggis. Let's leave it at that and be there.
Well, I love haggis too, but I wouldn't.
I'm just trying to get away from that analogy.
have to say it out loud.
Oh dear.
I was refraining so much. I was like, the
I
alliteration.
wouldn't shag a haggis. Good to know.
Madden in chat says, "Come here, you woolly beauty."
That's because he said he's a chuchter, an actual chuchter.
Oh, dear. We have quite a few Scots who listen in chat. I've got Bailey Ineora, who's a patron of mine, who says, "I'm a Fifer." Yeah, I don't know
my condolences, sir.
There you go.
That is someone from the Kingdom of Fife.
Although chat appears to be deciding that Sarah is secretly a binge drinker.
Really? Based on what?
That's the main thing. I don't know. It's just Twisted with Melancholy says, "Why do I get the feeling Sarah is a secret binge drinker? Anyone else think this?" And
Twisted with Melancholy. I love that name.
And Stephen
Twisting my melon, man.
Stephen Steinbrink says, "Lol, yeah, she's a posho that loves a secret binge drink." So apparently,
she's a posho. Oh man, I see. Right.
Not only are you a binge drinker, apparently you like to drink alone, according to that comment.
Oh no!
What is your tipple of choice, then?
That rings true.
Yes. What is your
occasional glass of gin seems pretty. I like Scotch and gin, probably mostly.
Not Madeira or sherry.
Not
Sherry.
Sherry.
She says these things, but really it's Lambrini
not
on the side.
or I like
Lightning.
anything that's colourful. White lightning. Isn't that cider?
Which one? Sorry.
Yeah,
White lightning. No.
It's pish. That's what it is.
It is pish. Anything with like a sparkly straw and a nice pretty cocktail that's pink, more or less. I'm joking.
Well,
No,
chat,
you're not.
you know what to do. The memes of Alki Sarah must begin now.
Injo.
Yeah, Sarah drinking a bottle of gin out of a brown paper bag in a doorway.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Bottle of Mary Down and or Buckfast maybe.
Hey.
So you know more names for alcohol than I do.
I was
Certainly.
going to say, it's coming very naturally to you, Dale.
Well, what can
For
I
someone
say?
who doesn't drink.
It's my culture.
Is it not illegal for your blood alcohol level to be below a certain percentage?
Yeah, that's why I have. That's the real reason that I remain anonymous, is because mine is usually 0.
Oh dear. So back onto literature. Do either of you have?
Can't read.
You can't. I've invited Tailed on as like the diversity hire.
Yeah,
as
I'm the comic relief.
I hear.
Oh,
I hear you're doing you're reading a book that you might do a review on at the moment, Tailed.
Oh shit! Oh yeah, that book.
Ooh, what is
Just
it?
to bring that up.
I spoke to you about it, Sarah, already.
Oh, is that one? Yeah. I know.
That one. Yeah.
That one.
Well, I wasn't sure if it was a
Chat
fiction
doesn't know
one.
what that one is, so.
But I
Well,
didn't want to give away the.
Well, it depends how much he wants to talk about it, doesn't he?
well,
we can let him decide, can we?
yeah.
Well, Tailed, what are you going
long-
to do? Are you going to talk about it now? Huh?
It's a secret. No, no. Long story short, it's a book on free speech written by a guy who believes that Count Dankula's punishment was fair and just.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I did hear there was something. What was it I was hearing? I think, and I'm sorry if I constantly bring up references to Peter Hitchens, but I've been watching a lot of stuff recently.
Wow.
But he did this one talk about free speech and he was on, I think it was Daily Politics, and basically the other guest was talking about the government snooping. How much. Should the government be allowed to collect in terms of its data and so on and so forth? What should it monitor and what not? And the government had appointed an extremism minister, right? Who's supposed to monitor extremism.
But as in,
yes,
words.
presumably. And he was just going. An extremism minister, and he was just going, well, one, this is ludicrous. Just over the case of ideas shouldn't be criminalized. It doesn't really matter how heinous they are. Either you can make a good case for incitement to violence, because that is in of itself a crime. but actual ideas themselves shouldn't be doing. And then this woman was basically saying, yes, but we have this trouble in, like, say, eastern South London, where kids are discussing these ideas in schools that we don't want discussed. And it was just like, yeah, but they'll never find out that they're wrong unless they discuss them. Because otherwise they just become taboo, and then they want to do it. It's like, which books are there was a great South Park episode on Catcher in the Rye, which was obviously banned for many years because of the chap who killed John Lennon. And all the kids, they're saying, oh, it's going to be decriminalized, we're going to bring it back into schools, it's no longer banned. And all the kids are really excited, and they get told that it's like the most perverse, awful book that they could ever possibly have read. And they're so excited, and they get told they're only allowed to read one chapter, and they don't care. They're like, we're going to read the whole thing if it's this disgusting book. And they read it, and of course they're just like, it's just got some swear words in it. It sucks a bit, They didn't really like it, and of course it sparks off the whole episode of them writing something even worse, like the worst thing they could ever write, in an effort to try and get it banned. But it's just like the literature ideas in general need to be discussed, because otherwise they become these taboo things with a kind of an allure. And especially anything that gets tarred as extremist, apart from the fact that just extremist itself is really vague. It's just like words which can harm. Well, words which can harm how and in what way? It's like we take umbrage with someone shouting at someone in public, that sort of thing, or swearing at someone in public, etc., and causing a public disturbance. But the content of their speech, hurtful as it is not harmful in a physical sense. So it's hard to, it's too broad. And Peter quite rightly made the point in his discussion about it, saying, for tomorrow, my viewpoint could be classified as extreme, because he advocates these sort of traditionalist views, the idea that, and he brought up the example, for instance, that under Prevent or something like that, which is the government's anti-terrorism policy, 2 conservative Christian parents were prevented from adopting because not because they said that they wouldn't promote homosexuality or that they would oppose it, but because they said that they, according to their views, they wouldn't promote it, that they wouldn't say they wouldn't encourage their children to be gay. So it's
encourage them to be gay. Isn't that? Is it? It's not a choice, is it?
Well, exactly right. So, but it means that if their kids showed signs, for instance, of being homosexuality, then they wouldn't, they wouldn't be particularly encouraging of that, and they would explore, sort of theological reasons and so on and so forth. Or, but basically to use their right, effectively, as parents to raise their child how they wished, and if the kid and how they wanted, and to be tactful or not, as the case may be. Provided they're not taking the kid to electroshock therapy, that's their prerogative, and the government doesn't really have a right to get in their business about that.
Well, considering that it's perfectly okay to give a child puberty suppressing drugs, I would say that's cruel and possibly it ought to be outlawed, but that's considered perfectly reasonable.
Absolute bigot.
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 So that's exactly bigot. Yeah, I'll take that. I'm bigot and proud. Bigot up.
And you're also mocking my accent. Was you can't mock the diversity hire. Come on.
The diversity hire. What are you going to do about it? I've got majority privilege over it.
Yeah, well, I've got totalitarian, authoritarian government behind me.
Yeah, but I'm a woman.
Damn it!
Yeah, but you're a white woman.
Either way.
You're a white woman, though. So, under intersectionality.
Well, there's no. Yeah, but we're only a trio. If you want to invite a black woman on, then yeah.
Well, the British.
What time is British are coming on?
You don't need no man.
The British don't need no man.
No.
Anyway,
Apparently, the SNP have been trying to give all children a state guardian. Do you know anything about that, Teld? Given that you live up in no man's land?
Up in Choosterville. That'll be shit. What's it called? The named person scheme. Yes, it's been shot down at several times now, I think, but they won't give up. Essentially, yeah. There's I can't really remember all the ins and outs of it, but every child needs to have a guardian who is not necessarily the parents or even a family member. Could be a teacher, could be a community officer, could be a youth worker. Could be anything, and it's to be decided by the state rather than the parent.
That's awfully dodgy.
Yeah, hence why people have been up in arms about it.
I can understand that. That's pretty horrendous.
Indeed.
I just can't imagine the state doing that. Like, it's weird. Like, all these things that you would imagine are something that China would do, or Russia. Like, you would get into your business to this extent, but no.
It is weird.
Chat's now asking, can we levy a tax on Owen Jones for the crime of being Owen Jones?
See, when people ask, why do you support Scottish independence, I always say, well, I don't at the moment. If there was a referendum tomorrow, which who knows, there might be, I would vote no, because the only party that would get in would be the SNP, and to hell with that.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with liking us, though.
No, not really.
Yeah, you think a two-party system is bad. Imagine a one-party system under the SNP.
Well, I pretty much have a one-party system in Scotland at the minute.
Yeah,
but not that not that Holyrood can actually do particularly much at the moment, just as well.
I can't remember exactly what it is, but I do remember the moment when the SNP just took all the Labour seats.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that was quite funny because Labour have had such a Labour have had such a Scotland's been such a Labour stronghold for so many years, and they just completely committed political suicide. It was quite funny to watch, and then it was like, well, wait a minute.
Well, just the funny thing, like whenever election time comes around, just to not be serious, I always amused because I'm reminded that the Welsh exist. And like you get they have the debates on TV, and suddenly Plaid Cymru come out of nowhere, and I can't remember the woman who was on last time, and forgive me for not knowing her name, who came on, it was just like such a sweet Welsh accent, basically saying
by any chance.
A completely ineffectual party and policies who are just happy to be part of the Welsh Assembly.
No, basically, yeah.
Yeah, bless them.
I just remember when the independence referendum, when the results were being called out, there was a few of my English friends who were watching the results come in with me, and the first the first county to have all the results, all the polls counted and everything, is the smallest county in Scotland, which is Clackmannanshire, and they were all going, where the hell is that? That's not a real place. It doesn't, like, when you see it spelt, it just looks absolutely ridiculous. Clackmannanshire. It sounds like it's completely made up. Sounds like Balamory is in Clackmannanshire.
That sounds like a complete nonsense story. That's a complete lie.
Good evening, Mr. British.
Strong, independent black woman has arrived.
I don't believe for one moment the tailed feature has any English friends.
I'm your friend, is that what you're trying to say?
I'm so much of Tail's friends I could dox him on stream, and it's definitely not because he put his real name in his PayPal donation.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Yes, I must say, just so it's official, that I am very impressed at Tailed Feature's tank driving abilities for that latest clip of his.
Yes. For those of you who have not seen it, Tailed Feature released a Killdozer-esque video featuring Count Dankula, and it's well worth a watch for 2 minutes of your time.
Yes, why
haven't
it has
seen
not got 500,000 views yet, I don't know. But then
No,
that's
but it needs it.
It's because the man is keeping me down because I'm the diversity hire here.
You're Susan. It is really.
Not anymore.
Well, yeah, sorry, I'm the second bottom from the bottom of the progressive stack.
You're second rung from the bottom. The Britisher, just to let you know, you've been reclassified for the duration of this stream as black lesbian.
the black lesbian.
Strong
I'm
ind-
kind
strong
of
independent.
am I the kind of orange quality street that kind of nobody wants, that sort of collects at the bottom of the tin?
You're the
Oh,
one.
no,
You're the praline
like
one.
the blue one.
Yeah,
You're assuming you're even in the tin.
Oh well, yes, precisely. Yes, of course. Sorry.
People have
How presumptive of me.
people. Do you remember there was a meme called Thanos Car?
There was a meme called Thanos Car. I will take your word for it.
Right.
I will
Basically,
have to.
the big purple gentleman from the Marvel universe,
Big
Yes,
purple
yes.
gentleman.
and there's been a meme made of the Britisher as the Britisher car that I've been told to share right now. So this
which
is
you've
this is,
been invited to share. Yes.
I've been invited to share. As you can see,
I
he's
can see it
famous.
comes with its own fence.
Yes,
Yes.
I like the flag.
because Thanos' chin looks remarkably similar to a fence. So
I think,
you,
yes.
um,
And for some reason, I have got, what is it? I've got a Nazi flag, a Don't Tread on Me flag, a red communist flag, a gay Confederate communist flag,
with a
and
swastika on it.
a
Star of David.
Star of David sticker on my purple Thanos car.
yes, the rainbow Confederate Nazi communist flag was basically an attempt to generate a flag which would piss off absolutely everyone in the entire world at once, simultaneously.
Confusing, if not anything. I like the
and
sneak in that picture.
look, people are taking the mick out of the fact that I called him a big purple gentleman because this is a meme of the Britishers' big purple gentleman, right? Oh dear! Why is no one grilling?
It does sound slightly like a euphemism, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
Yes.
Why is no one grilling the Britisher for his plebeian taste in frozen pizza?
Sorry,
Agreed.
plebeian.
Okay,
not
plebeian.
plebeian.
Forgive me,
Oh.
forgive me.
Roasted. Rip Mark.
But there you go. It's just like we were. For goodness sake, the word is escaping me. We were pontificating about what pizza you were having, right? Whether or not it was an artisanal pizza, deconstructed.
I can actually reveal that it was not a frozen pizza.
Knew it.
It was one that was being sold half price at Tesco's.
Was it a haggis pizza?
I'm not sure. It came in a sort of nice little cardboard box. It might be even I might be misremembering this because I didn't pay that much attention to it. I saw it was large. It was thin crust. I can't stand this deep pan nonsense the Americans invented. And it was half price, so I thought, I'm going for that. It might even have been one of these Pizza Express things.
Do you not remember what it tasted like?
So I kind of chucked that in the oven, and
you are to be forgiven for not remembering what it truly looked like. But I will draw your attention.
Well, it was a pizza margherita, so it's a plain one. I'm not one for all these kind of things on top. You know,
like your personality.
Pineapple.
I understand. Like,
Are you saying like the personality?
Would I say such a thing, Sarah?
Yeah, of course you say that.
May I ask, why is Sarah on that particular picture drinking Carlsberg, or at least holding a bottle?
So as you can see here, you did miss the fact that we've identified that Sarah has a binge drinking habit, and
Only it is a myth.
and likes to drink alone, and she
looks likely a wino that drinks alone.
I like that Tailed and Sarah volunteered a huge array of drinks that Sarah could possibly be binging on, and Carlsberg is not one of them.
Well,
we gave you cocktails, we gave you scotch.
At first, I struggled to read the Carlsberg bit, so the Carl's bit, I could see Berg. So obviously knowing that Sarah is somewhat in with the Teutons, at first I suspected it might be Underberg.
Underberg. I mean,
No,
very,
it's not. It's definitely not. But
very
that I do like Underberg.
continental.
Oh, well, there you go. See, so Sarah knows
Probably
that
someone thinks I'm
Underberg.
gonna slum it with a Carlsberg.
There is even a jingle, or at least there was, 2.5 decades ago, when I remember there being jingles on various German-speaking media. There was even a jingle which was it Colonel Bogey just turned into just set to the lyrics "Komm doch mit auf den Unterberg." But there you go. Those are the kind of catchy jingles in German.
It certainly sounds catchy. So much so that I definitely wasn't checking
One
my
of
phone.
the best things I actually remember from way back. I mean, my
here we
guess
go.
is this brand doesn't even exist anymore. Was Omo wäscht weißer als weiß, and I kid you not, it was a washing powder that advertised with the slogan "Omo washes whiter than white."
Yes, I do remember that phrase being controversial somewhat recently as well.
Oh well, yes. I mean, today, I guess there would be the Southern Poverty Law Center would be berating that particular washing powder company. Yes,
Wash is colourful than colourful, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't make grammatical sense as long as everyone's included. Christian Verti has donated €5. I'm getting all the currencies today. Thank you very much. If British's pizza had pineapple on it, let it be known that man is dead to me. Actually, that applies to everyone.
Well, let's. It's funny because obviously somebody is showing their psychic abilities again here. So first off, no, I do not like sort of various toppings on pizza. So there was no pineapple on the pizza, but I will nonetheless give you half a point here because I afterwards had one of those little plastic sort of fruit salad cups where you kind of peel off the lid.
Yes,
and,
yes. From Waitrose, obviously.
It wasn't fruit salad as such. It was pineapple. So I had kind of a few spoonfuls of pineapple dessert following the pizza, but it wasn't on top of the pizza, which I would have thought just
don't.
unbearable.
I definitely the British. He claims that it was one of these fruit cups, but realistically, it was the tinned sort of Del Monte pineapple that you get that comes already in rings in a tin.
Oh no!
The sort of thing that people bring out, they can add to the punch at a wedding, like a cheap wedding reception. Oh dear.
Well, no, I must sort of stress, I'm assuming it's more than likely just Tesco's own brand little plastic cups with some pineapple chunks in. And I would say you more than likely get 3 to 4 teaspoonfuls of pineapple before it's over, if you know what I mean.
People, I'm sorry, Britisher. I know you hate the fence sitting meme. I know it irks you. But people are like, you use so much of the fence, you can't even choose what toppings to have on your pizza. It's not that you don't like any of them, you just can't decide.
Yes, precisely. I'm just that indecisive. I'm wondering what message it might send if I have ham or pineapple or mushrooms or yes, that obviously must be it.
Anything but gammon and you're fine. Right. Another €5 has just come in saying pineapple is in itself is only ever tasteless on pizza. Right. Pineapple in itself is only ever tasteless. On pizza, it is a subtle declaration of war to a certain portion of people.
Well, to be honest, I think actually people are taunting you here, not so obvious. Because,
they're taunting me with money. I mean,
yeah, precisely. Yes, they're actually sending you euros. Knowing that you're a Brexiteer, they're kind of deliberately sending you euros. They're choosing that currency in order to rub you up the wrong way. And
I don't think
you seem to be utterly oblivious to it.
They can't help it.
As long as the money's coming in.
There's a what, sorry?
I said they can't help it if that is their own currency. You don't get to choose what currency super chats come through in.
You could force it through. Do you know?
Which you would know.
People are deliberately spending £20 a month on a VPN so that they can send me euros instead of pounds. This meme here, which is Britisher as Thanos, shows that with all the indecision stones, the Britisher is finally able to wipe out half of all fences in the universe. It's just
but only half the fences.
Only half the fences, as is the way.
Now that immediately calls into question what do I do, because I wouldn't know which half to annihilate.
Yes, well, it's random, of course. Right wing, left wing, and it says perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
JF on the red.
Oh yes,
JF.
the JF.
Monsieur Gariepi, the man who decided to decided to block me on Twitter because I became a little too mocking.
Little Pepe.
Little Pepe. I've been told that there are more memes above, but they just appear to all be the British car over and over again. So I give up with that one.
Oh, that's
good to see.
I'm surprised in that regard that none of them have taken to basically changing the model of car, and they've all stuck with this purple monstrosity that I would obviously never drive.
Well, obviously yours would be red.
Well,
a three-wheeler.
If you think of it, the grille of a Rolls Royce would be an ideal motif for a fence.
To be perfect,
and yet none of them have actually even considered that.
To be fair,
you know what's happening now. You know what's happening now, right?
Yeah.
Someone get him in Delboy's van or something.
In all fairness, I definitely see you as as driving a dune buggy in your Flashman style attire across the dunes.
Dune buggy. Oh dear God,
yes.
No.
Did you drive a Morris 1000, British?
Oh well, yes. I think I would be very much a Morris 1000. Yes.
What was that? What was that car that Messerschmitt produced? That was sort of a car and sort of not.
Oh, that was a bubble car, wasn't it?
No. Well, it was. It was sort of a bubble car, but more refined than most.
It was a bubble car, but they sat one behind the other, didn't they?
Yes, I always wanted one of those. You know, it's a hideously ugly car.
Yes, because it's a Messerschmitt, and because you have divided loyalties.
Not because I have divided loyalties, just because it looked so comfortable to drive in, and it came from the era of cars where they'd put stupid things like carpet on the doors to make it more luxuriant. And
you're not really tall, though, Mark.
I am quite tall, yes.
I don't think you'd fit in one of them.
Probably not, but I'd still like to own one. I think you can pick.
Do they not only have one door as well?
On the right-hand side, yes. But I think I can pick one up for around between £5,000 and £8,000. So at some point, maybe
you do realise that there was actually a car called the Spitfire.
Oh well, yes, I seem to recall. Yes.
Was it a Triumph? I'm not sure. Triumph Spitfire. I'm not sure.
Is that not a motorcycle?
If you've got the choice between a Spitfire car or a Messerschmitt bubble car,
it's true enough. Oh, all right. I'll take your point.
Yes, it was a Triumph Spitfire. I just looked it up.
Yes.
Oh, cheers.
Christian Verti, €2 says British would surely only drive a Jaguar S-Type.
Well, I mean, it all depends on what on how generous the super chats are going to be in future.
It's just well, if you ever run another Cyberpass quiz, you might find out. We are still waiting. Now we know why Mark isn't in the RAF anymore. Yes, because I wanted this car.
You wanted the Messerschmitt.
They broke my legs. It wasn't that I fell over.
You turned up one morning in that, and they just locked the doors from the inside. Just went, no, we don't want to know.
This started as a literature stream, right?
It didn't really start off
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking I'm threaders here. I've been looking at Chaucer for the past hour, and I'm sat here talking about bloody Messerschmitts.
Well, you talk to us about Chaucer then, Sarah.
No, it's all right. I'm only messing
Well,
around.
since we're on the subject of Chaucer, how would Chaucer have to be pronounced and whatever? I mean, can one actually read Chaucer in modern English?
Well, unless you know Middle English, yes. It's you'd have to really have an ear for it and an eye for it. It's not very palatable. But yes, you can read it and recognize the language. You know what? It's not similar to Gaelic.
Or Gaelic.
Well, you're not selling this to me, are you?
Or Bulgarian.
Well, I didn't realize it was a selling job.
Well, no, I mean, you're basically telling me it sounds like Bulgarian.
It's a very dense text in Old English.
The father of English literature, fluent in Bulgarian.
Have you heard Bill Bailey's Chaucer pub gag?
No.
Oh, it's brilliant. Am I allowed to read it?
Yeah, to go for it.
Yeah.
It's
The
quite long.
stream's already
but
been demonetized anyway. It's fine.
Okay, it's fine. So it's 3 fellows went into a pub, and gleefully their hands did rub, in expectation of revelry, for 'twas the hour known as happy. Great bottles of wine did they quaff, and had a really good laugh, till drunkenness held full dominion, for 'twas 2 for the price of 1. Yet after wine and mead and sack, man must have a massive snack. Great pasties from Cornwall, Scottish eggs round like a ball. Great hams, quail, duck, and geese. They sucked the bones and drank the grease. One fellow stood all pale and wan, for he was vegetarian. Yet man knoweth that gluttony stoketh the fire of lechery. Upon 3 young wenches round and sly, the fellows cast a wanton eye. One did approach with drunken wink. "Hello, darling, you fancy a drink?" Soon they caught them on their knee. 'Twas like some grotesque puppetry. Such was the lewdness and debauchery. 'Twas like a sketch by Dick Emery. Except that Dick Emery is not yet born, so such comparison may not be drawn. But then the fellows began to pale, for quail are not the friend of ale, and in their bellies much confusion, from their throats vile extrusion, stinking foul corruption came spewing forth from drooling lips. The fetid stench did fill the pub. 'Twas the very ass of Beelzebub. Thrown they were from the horn and trumpet. In the street, no coin, no strumpet. Homeward bound must quickly go. To that end a donkey stole. Their hands all with vomit greased. The donkey was not pleased, and threw them into a ditch of shite. They all agreed, what a brilliant night.
Oh, applause.
Honestly.
I wish I could write something like that, but I'm not Bill Bailey.
Good.
No, but you did do a good rendition though, with the
Oh, thank
accent and everything. It was all good.
Thank you. I don't know what that accent was.
Yeah, some people seem to assume it was Indian on in the chat. So
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm gonna have to scroll through the chat and see what was going on there.
it's an Italian on weed, that sort of thing. Although I think he's talking about someone else. I have a friend of mine. Speaking of poetry, who's a fan of Leonard Cohen, if you're familiar. And they sent this one to me the other day, which was, there was so little to say. All my prophecies were coming true. I was so old. My work was done. Then you began to undress for me on Skype, and I had to think about my life again. And that's just the end of the poem. And I'm just like, classic
Black
Cohen.
Hole Bones.
Just as like no need for rhyme, no need for reason. Just basically just his diary, but stilted. You know, that's the way I look at it.
That reminds me of Charles Bukowski's, one of his most famous poems is simply "We like to shower afterwards."
Can you recite it for us?
It's a bit time consuming, I must admit. That is the line. That's the poem.
No, it's just it. You give the that's it. All footnotes and all. Dear. I'm being told off by people on various chats, particularly on Twitter, for not getting to the books. I'm like, we're talking about the books. We're getting there now. It's fine. That's
I'm gonna go soon.
Yes, I know. We've only got another half an hour at most. But there's more news. We'll save news for another time. But do you have any particular favourites, Britisher? For something that inspired you when you were younger? Something that sticks with you?
Ecke, Besen, Besen, seid's gewesen, denn als Geister ruft euch nur zu seinem Zwecke erst hervor der alte Meister.
We've
take
lost
that
the
as a
British.
yes.
We've lost the Britisher.
Alzheimer's.
Well, you did ask.
Oh no, fair enough. But,
that is Goethe's Zauberlehrling, as no doubt Sarah would have been able to tell us.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's beautiful.
Can you give us the gist for those of us who are not?
Well, are you
fluent
familiar
German
with
speakers?
Mickey Mouse being the magician's apprentice?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the Zauberlehrling. That's where the actual tale comes from. Him cleaving in half all these brooms that then just become two brooms, and in the end he's kind of overwhelmed by an army of brooms until that was just the very section there where the master returns and just basically casts a spell and the broom becomes one again and is sent back into the corner.
It sounds dreadfully dramatic. But I'm sure. Clearly, it's inspired
the chat are doing a great job right now.
Yeah, I know they're amazing.
Amused.
What on earth is going on? It's like it's 4 a.m, the end of December. I'm writing you now just to see if you're better. What now? Oh God, Britishers speaking tongues, kill him. Dear God, now Britishers hide. The Britisher needs an exorcism. I knew it. German spy confirmed. Stop him. He's summoning a demon. Spelt in the correct.
You say German spy confirmed, but think on it. If I were to have been spying for the British in a German-speaking country, what language would I have to speak?
Do you put yourself?
Bulgarian, precisely?
Do you put yourself in the same position as that chap in Blackadder?
Oh,
who's in
George.
the hospital.
That's all right.
Not George, but the chap across from him who's yelling in German. That speaks with a very thick German accent because he's been behind enemy lines for the last 3 years or whatever it is. You know?
Right. How many slides have you seen? 9.
Well, I always remember the advisor to the Prime Minister in Yes, Prime Minister, who puts the idea into the Prime Minister's head of bringing back conscription. And I remember Bernard talks about Sir Humphrey's attitudes towards that particular advisor.
Yes.
And sort of says, oh, well, I'm afraid Sir Humphrey doesn't see him as sound. Why not? I believe he won the DSO, didn't he? Yes, but that doesn't make up for speaking with an Austrian accent, sir.
Yes, indeed. People asking, is there unpopular opinions tonight? Yes, there is. In about 45 minutes to 2 hours, given that anytime AA decides to stream is...
Yes, somehow I've got the feeling that the academic agent is going to be very angry this evening.
Well, only if we decide to keep this stream going for another couple of hours.
Well, no, it's not so much about that. It's more the fact that I've got the feeling is it the Covington Boys? Is that the name of them? I think that story is more than likely going to feature, and
I hope so. I like it when academic agents.
I've got the feeling that the academic agent is going to become a little more passionate than usual.
He has been quite passionate of late in general. In fact, his success irritates me.
You need to get more passionate then. Mark.
He's been pushing out hit after hit.
If his success irritates you, then may I introduce you to the to a wonderful YouTuber called Coach Red Pill.
I know, right?
No, thank you.
I think we all have that one YouTuber who, surpassed us, that we just, are a bit jealous of. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I've yet to surpass
I
anyone.
don't normally speak of Sargon in that way, but
No, there's a couple actually that used to be in sort of DM groups back in the early days of my YouTube career, if you can call it that. That were all kind of on roughly the same amount of subscribers, and some of them are over 100k and all that sort of thing now.
I remember being about. I mean, I may be misremembering here, but I think I remember being on a live stream with Count Dankula, and I was about 2,000 or 3,000 subs behind him.
He's on 400.
Yes. Yeah, but you didn't get arrested.
You didn't get arrested.
If I recall correctly, he's now at 400,000 subscribers.
Something like that. Although he has been entirely demonetized. So, and if that's you're doing Britisher, well done. That's all I want to say.
It's sabotage.
No doubt this is going to be the moment when you call me out like Mundane Matt was, to kind of show whatever thing he had to show in order to show whether he had been reporting people. I wouldn't even know what buttons I would have to press, but there you go.
We will keep the stream on literature grounds. We will keep it there. Sarah, do you have any particular favourites from your childhood or from current day that you like as literature and so on?
My favourite was probably always The Sorrows of Young Werther, which is also Goethe. And then I like Kafka and Steinbeck. From childhood, probably.
So
Fight.
So not Harry Potter then?
Not Harry Potter. No, I'm not a fan of Harry Potter. For more reasons than one. But if it's got a good Hopkins and a good compromise.
I know you did do a thesis on Nietzsche, and I'm wondering whether or not writing that thesis put you off him, just in terms of the sheer volume you had to read of his work.
Because he's written so much. I mean, I'm still finding stuff now. So no, I would say I like him more than ever. Well, my thesis was on the Romantics, but he was the literary critic that I used, because he's a classicist, not actually a philosopher, although we call him that. So I used his philology as a kind of way to read it. But no, I love him more than ever. But lots of people do. I mean, you get pretty sick of the criticism more than anything. But no, he's still my favorite.
Yeah, fair enough. The people mentioning Steinbeck, Roald Dahl, that sort of thing. I always did like Roald Dahl. He was,
really? No, I was never a fan.
Never a fan of Roald Dahl. I liked some, and not others.
George's Marvelous Medicine was all right.
Sorry, who?
I think
George's Marvelous Medicine.
Oh yes.
Did you read any of the books that he did that weren't for children?
Yes, I read his Macabre Tales. One of my favourites from that is the man who invents headphones that can hear the voices of plants. And he's there. He's just invented it, and he's done it by accident. And he goes outside, and his neighbour is clipping the roses, and cutting some roses for whatever reason, and he asks her to cut them one at a time, and then he hears this awful cacophony from someone mowing the lawn, and he can't work out what it is, and it takes him a few days. He works out that it's these plants screaming until they die.
Yikes.
And so he asks a friend of his who has a chainsaw to come to come chop a tree so he can hear what it sounds like, because it doesn't sound like a scream. And he gets him to start it up and start cutting to the tree, at which point he tears his headphones off, throws them on the ground, and tells him to stop immediately and get the iodine, because he doesn't know anything else which will stop the thing. And he gets carted off to an insane asylum because of this thing, and everyone forgets. But there's some hideous ones in there, like the man who gets chosen to be a brain in a jar, and the only thing that's left of him after he dies is this brain in a jar and its eyeball, so that he can see the world. So it's just him and his thoughts, but he can't move the eye or anything. He's just stuck in there. And his wife comes afterwards and demands him back, but she's quite vindictive, so she started smoking again after his death, and is positioning him there and in quite a malicious way, and effectively it's going to be torture. But it's just a horrendous set of stories.
So it's a book about the Britcher then?
Yeah, obviously.
So it would
in a
appear,
jar.
yes.
Although he escaped when I bought him at an antiques fair after his late wife's demise. And now, of course, he sits on my shelf. And it took a while.
Escape.
And vegetates, yes.
Yeah, vegetates. Occasionally, I feed him plain margarita pizza because it's the only thing that he can stomach.
Is it plain though?
Is it? Well, sorry. Is it plain? Yes.
Well, it would
Make sure it's plain.
it would have to, by definition, be plain if it's a margarita pizza.
I tried putting pineapple chunks in there once, but he didn't like it very much. But no. So Roald Dahl's macabre work, so we're okay. Like when it comes to people with a lot to unpack, like stuff that you can go back and read again and again and again and always get something new out of, it's a quite strange predicament for me because I never did philosophy, or any kind of classical literature, because my childhood and my teens, to be perfectly honest, were just so dominated with biblical reading. So my parents were always like, you want to read something? Read the Bible, because that's where they got everything from. So I came quite late to the game to
Well, I mean, all our
writers.
literature in the Bible.
Sorry?
I mean, our literary history starts with the Bible anyway.
Oh, there's
So-
there's an awful lot in biblical writing, in interpretations. My grandfather is a critic or interpreter of the Bible, and he's written many things on that. So we always had a lot of that. But he also wrote fiction as well, so it was all kept in there as well. But
But you've just painted a wonderful mental image there for a moment. When you say your grandfather is a critic or interpreter of the Bible,
yes,
and I just had this view of, your grandfather arriving in the afterlife and then appearing before God,
yes.
and God just standing there. So, a critic, you say? Oh, let's see, page 231. What did you say about my utterance?
Well, I call him a critic. He's a very strong, passionate Christian. So yes, it would be funny considering we always laugh at my grandfather because he has this tendency to make things about him. So, I wrote when I was in the military, for instance, a decision-making analysis tool, dreadfully boring, basically for new leaders, and I explained it to him once, and he was basically like, "You haven't accounted for people like me, Mark. People like me will make decisions that you might think are insane, but we're guided by the unearthly. I am a maverick, and you haven't accounted for that in your one-size-fits-all decision-making tool." And I was like, well, I think I have. But secondly...
So this was Maverick calling you the Iceman.
Oh, God, no. Definitely not. He also had this tendency where if anything bad happened to the family, he would say, "Don't worry about it, it'll get better. It's just the enemy trying to get at me." So it was like, way to make my personal trauma your problem, Grandad. That was very funny.
No, it was just so funny that image sprung to mind at once when you kind of told it. And I remember they had something on Newsnight once. This is when Newsnight was still good, back in the days when Jeremy Paxman was presenting it. And I remember, once in a while they had to put a segment in because not enough news had happened. So they simply needed to make up some time somehow. And on one particular evening, they had something on about jokes. Now, this is, of course, before jokes were just deemed utterly toxic. And they had this guy who apparently had, I don't know if he was, he had done a PhD on humor or something like that. Don't ask me what exactly he had studied. And he kind of explained some of the concepts behind it and whatever, and said, the most powerful jokes are the ones that paint an image in your mind. They create a picture. And it is that kind of descriptiveness that kind of creates a picture that is so surreal and ridiculous that you can't help yourself. And he gave this example, which no doubt I'm going to butcher, and it was a Bernard Manning joke. And he said, well, Bernard Manning, of course, is always known as this blue comedian who was terribly racist. But Bernard Manning himself was actually capable at times of creating quite sophisticated jokes, and jokes which played with that perception.
Right.
So at one point, he's standing on stage and he says, "Oh, well, yeah, actually, I'm part Jewish." And immediately you can kind of hear the collective intake of air in the audience. Oh dear, where is he going here? You know. And he said, "Oh yeah, my grandfather, in fact, was Jewish. He died at Auschwitz." And again, now it's buttock clenching time. You know, Jewish, Auschwitz, Bernard Manning. Where on earth is this going to go? And then he just very casually looks at the audience and goes, "Yes, yeah, apparently fell out with the machine gun tower." And it's precisely that. It's that it creates that image. You can't help yourself. You see an old man shouting at a machine gun tower. You can't help yourself. And it's grief. And he creates that image, and it is in itself just surreal and comical. And if you can, any jokes, even those which are unwitting. So that one now, where you just basically created an image immediately in my mind of your old grandfather standing before God, and God going, "So a critic,"
Yes.
That's what
there's a comic strip in there somewhere.
That's where sort of very much of comedy actually resides.
I
The
won't
moment
become a comedian,
it starts
Richard.
inspiring sort of imagery in your mind, that's when you're sort of in the golden streak, if you know what I mean.
Do you have a bet on that I'm going to become a comedian with AA or something? Like you can't encourage me to do this, British. I'm conscious of the time, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to go through the last couple of super chats, and then we will call it an evening. So Leron Caesar has donated £2, thank you, and says the UK Empire was a force for good. Changed my mind. I think we've covered this a number of times on stream, haven't we? You and I, British.
It was undoubtedly a benign force. Yes.
Yes, where we definitely more harm than good. Like nature. What was it? I saw a debate earlier. It was like nature abhors a vacuum. There was always going to be a hegemony, and we're quite fortunate that the British Empire was our one. And Moody Englishman has donated $4.99. Thank you very much, and says, "What's your favourite Flashman book, Britisher? I like the ones based around the Great Game."
Yes, indeed. I would say it would be a draw, really, between two of them. The first one, I think, is the classic, because the very first one, that's the one where you're introduced to this stupendously likable character who's just an arch villain. The guy who gets found wrapped in the Union, draped in the Union Jack. It can't really get much better than that. The other one that I think is a tie with that is what's it called? I think the Flashman and the Mountain of Light. Is that it? Where the Koh-i-Noor, that great diamond that now is part of the Crown Jewels, ends up with Flashman. And that has got the funniest finishing line of any book I've ever read. I hollered. Which I can't possibly tell because
of course we'll have to go out and read it, but as opposed to explaining comedy, which definitely doesn't spoil it.
But no, it really is that's the greatest closing line of any book I've ever read.
Fair enough.
And for that alone, I think it's definitely a sort of a golden Flashman book.
Well. There you go. You have your recommendations to the chat. Well, I would not like to end it here, but I'm conscious of UO and the time pressures on my guests. So unfortunately, we're going to call it there. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. Thank you very much, despite your late arrival, for providing some wonderful anecdotes as usual, Britisher.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on and sharing stories with us, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for that wonderful rendition of Bill Bailey's poetry.
You're welcome, and thank you for asking me what my favourite book was.
What's your favourite book, Tailed? I did ask. And
Too late.
You
Too
declined.
late now.
You
No, no.
declined to ask. Well,
I
all this
wonder-
tells me. All
No,
this
no, it's
tells
too
me
late.
is we must come back at a later date
Exactly.
and do another one,
Start the conversation.
preferably with less time constraints. That was great. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care
Out.
and good night.
Toodle pip.
Cheery and resta.